Trump derangement syndrome again. Donald Trump was the very worst of all the United States presidents that ever lived, if you believe a poll of 154 presidential historians. And I wonder whether you actually should. Because, all right, yes, these historians did say that the best president was Abraham Lincoln, tick, but then said the left-wing do-nothing Barack Obama was the seventh best ever, even ahead of Eisenhower, Lyndon Johnson, the underestimated one. But even sillier is that these historians put Joe Biden, who is battling senility and inflation, who has let in 3 million illegal immigrants, put in 1 year, mind you, they've rated him as 14th best president, 2 places above Ronald Reagan, who merely helped to end the Cold War. I mean, seriously? Joining me is Sean Spicer, the first White House spokesman for President Donald Trump. Sean Spicer, great to see you again. Donald Trump, the worst US president ever. Do you believe that?
I wonder, I've heard about grading on a curve, and that's usually the opposite when you get a C or a D, as I did a few of those, and they bump you up a little. But the idea of having the record that he had both domestically and internationally, I mean, just stop for a moment and think about that. Domestically, that we were tranquil. Vladimir Putin wasn't on the ascent. He was actually the first administration, gosh, in what, 4 or 5, that Putin didn't annex land or go to war with a former territory during Donald Trump. China, Taiwan, North Korea, Iran, they were all at bay. That was a pretty good record. And then obviously domestically, our border was secure. We were energy independent. Unemployment was lowest for key groups of society at record levels, whether it was women or African Americans, veterans, young people. I kind of wonder how these guys grade. I wouldn't want to take a class from any of them. Yes, and
I'd also add to your list the Abraham Accords, where you had Muslim countries in the Middle East actually signing peace deals with cooperation deals with Israel, which, boy, are we some distance from that now. And then again, these same judges put Joe Biden as the 14th best president, 2 ahead of even Ronald Reagan. I mean, what does that tell you about all these presidential historians that said, yep, that's the list?
It does make you wonder, though, I mean, what the criteria is. Andrew, it's funny. I often will ask Biden supporters when I'm debating them or just having a conversation, name me one thing that you're proud of that he did. One thing. And a lot of them will immediately turn around and start going after Donald Trump and say, well, Trump. And I said, no, you can't answer the question with Trump. What are you proud of that Biden has done on any front in the last 3 years? And again, they will usually resort to talking about Donald Trump and he's a horrible person and da-da-da, we can't go backwards. And the point is that the most ardent Biden supporters have a hard time thinking of something that he's done well. The southern border's way open, inflation's high, record interest rates are through the roof. Our foreign policy is a mess. It began by a botched withdrawal from Afghanistan that Putin himself has pointed to as a reason, or one of the reasons, that he went after land in Ukraine. So I wonder, how do you grade like that? That takes grading on a curve to a whole new level.
Mind you, Sean, when you say that, of course, it makes me think again, if only Donald Trump would say less, get off the stage, and I know it's not in his nature, get off the stage and let all the attention go on Joe Biden, he would romp it in. He doesn't need to do anything, and yet he keeps making himself the centre of attention. Make it on Biden. I don't know why he doesn't do that. But listen, meanwhile, the persecution of Donald Trump, and I guess this is one of the reasons he does speak, because he gets persecuted, is getting even more pathetic. As we've discussed, it's been charged now with, what is it, Sean, 93 different offences so far, all by various Democrat officials.
Including... Once you hit 90, I just keep going.
Yeah, but the other 3, it's those last 3 that count, Sean. 93 different offences. They've all been lodged by various Democrat officials. This is very party political, including Fani Willis, who's the Fulton County District Attorney. And she's charged with trying to overturn the presidential election vote in Georgia. Now, Willis got her job by attacking her then rival for that DA job like this.
They deserve a DA that won't have sex with his employees, because they deserve a DA that won't put money in their own pocket when it should go to benefit children, because we deserve better.
Yeah, but that's the Fani Willis now who's prosecuting Donald Trump. Tell us, Sean, if she actually lived up to this noble promise not to sleep with her employees or put any money in her own pocket. And why does this matter?
Well, it's funny. I the other day on cable television here in the United States, that the motion, I guess I'm not a lawyer, but the motion regarding whether she had acted inappropriately was wall-to-wall cable news. And there's two things that the audience needs to understand. So she hired a gentleman, Nathan Wade, who frankly didn't have any prosecutorial experience, but she hired him to help with prosecutions in her office, and ultimately that became some of the Trump-related cases. The problem is that there's a question about when and if she began a relationship. And even as a non-lawyer, I've asked lawyers on my podcast over the last couple of weeks, like, what difference does it make? I mean, if you're their boss and you're directing them, does it matter if you started sleeping with them a couple of weeks or months before you hired them or a couple of weeks afterwards? And generally speaking, the answer is no. It shouldn't matter at all. It's unethical in either scenario. The second issue is, you know, he collected over $600,000, this Nathan Wade, in fees that Fulton County has paid him. Then they would go on trips that he would pay for, you know, cruises, Caribbean trips, etc. And then she would, quote, pay him back in cash that we're talking to the tune of, you know, several $100s per time, if not thousands, that he then says, you know, well, I have no record of. And again, that gets back to this idea of, did she financially benefit? She's hiring him. He's charging these fees to the county in Georgia, Fulton County. And then is she materially benefiting because he's taking her on these cruises and wine tastings and trips, etc.?
Look, it's just, honestly, Sean, I mean, if the you know, all these DAs put enough attention into her like they're putting onto Trump, yeah, who wouldn't escape whipping? You know,
the whole thing, though, Andrew, it was hysterical listening to the conversation, because these folks on the left here in America are so progressive that you know, the gender and pronouns, and yet she started talking about the reason that she kept so much cash lying around to the tune of thousands of dollars is because, quote, it's a black thing. And then when she was asked about when the relationship began, she said, well, it's a woman thing to know when it did. Men think differently. I just found it interesting that when it's okay to play the race and gender card when it works to your advantage as a progressive, but God forbid, you know, that when that's not happening, you call out everybody else, making sure that the proper use of pronouns are in place.
What a bunch of stinking hypocrites. Sean Spicer, thank you so much for your time.
Always good to be with you, Andrew.